Some people want petrol cars, some people want electric cars. To quote that very catchy taco ad, why not have both? The Mitsubishi Outlander was one of the first mainstream SUVs in Australia to offer hybrid power when it launched the plug-in hybrid Outlander in 2013. And just like Madonna, it's still here and it's constantly reinventing itself. The 2022 Outlander plug-in hybrid has a bigger battery, more electric range, more interior space and more technology. But before I give you all the details, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel or else. No matter the specification grade, all Outlander plug-in hybrids get the same powertrain, and that's a 2.4 litre, 4-cylinder petrol engine paired to a front and rear electric motor and a 20 kilowatt-hour battery, driving all four wheels via a single-speed automatic transmission. Combined outputs are rated at a peak of 185 kilowatts of power and 450 newton meters of torque, and that's actually a fair bit more than the regular non-hybrid Outlander. And that bigger 20 kilowatt hour battery means there's now 84 kilometers of claimed range, which is around 30 kilometers more than the old Outlander plug-in hybrid. I'm reviewing the second most expensive Outlander plug-in hybrid grade, the Exceed, and that starts at just under $66,000 before on-road costs. That's around $16,000 more than the same grade in non-hybrid form, which is a fair leap to wrap your head around given they share more or less the same equipment. So you're really going to have to weigh up how much that plug-in hybrid powertrain is worth to you. For that price, you'll get all-wheel drive, 7 seats, tri-zone climate control, and fun extras like a sunroof, 20-inch alloy wheels, leather-appointed seats, and electric mirrors. Now the Outlander really is one of a kind with its 7 seats and plug-in hybrid power. In fact, it has very few competitors. Those include the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, the Ford Escape plug-in hybrid, and the MG HS EV plug-in hybrid. Now all of those start at closer to $50,000, but keep in mind they don't offer 7 seats and the RAV4 is the only one that offers all-wheel drive. So in the front seat of the Mitsubishi Outlander, there's plenty of screens. There's this 9-inch central touchscreen, which has DAB digital radio, satellite navigation inbuilt, wireless CarPlay, but Android Auto unfortunately requires a wired connection. And this expansive digital driver display has all the information you need at hand, including a digital speedo and live speed limit info. Plus, that's projected onto the windshield as well in the form of quite a big head-up display. While the graphics on the driver display are crisp, modern and quite detailed, the graphics on the touchscreen leave a bit to be desired and could do with more pizzazz. Down here there's a wireless smartphone charger plus a USB-C port and your regular USB port for those of you who haven't made the transition yet, which is very much something I relate to. This center console is pretty wide but doesn't encroach too much on your knee room, so that's really nice and handy. And it's got some extra storage slots down here below the gear shifter as well. On top of that, you've got some door bins too. I've got my coffee cup in mine, 2 cup holders here, and a nice central glove box. In this grade, all the finishes and touch points in the cabin feel really premium as well. So you've got these leather appointed quilted seats, which are really comfortable. They have electric adjustment and they're heated. That's both the driver and the passenger seat. Plus, I love the X factor that the quilted doors adds too. This leather wrapped steering wheel feels really lovely, as does the gear shifter down here. And it's all really nicely put together and well laid out and streamlined. I love the sunroof too. It's really big, it opens up nice and wide, and on top of that it has a retractable blind too, so it really cuts through the glare on those hotter, sunnier days, not that we get many of those here in Melbourne, and it just adds a really nice open, light, airy feel in the cabin. Plus, if you're into your music, you get a 9-speaker Bose sound system with subwoofer as well. One thing to note in this car is that your footroom is encroached upon slightly in the front row because of the raised flooring to accommodate the battery, which is stored under the floor and in the middle here, so it's more of an annoyance than anything. In the back seat of the Outlander, I've got really great knee room, toe room, leg room in general, but you might notice my head is actually grazing the roof here, so headroom isn't fantastic. Of course, that sunroof contributes to a nice light, bright, airy feeling, but I will say if I was any taller, I'd be really struggling with headroom in the back seat, so that's worth noting. As part of this grade, you do get inbuilt rear sun blinds on the back windows, which is awesome if you have little kids in here, or even if you just have adult passengers. It's nice to cut out that glare. So that's a really handy feature that you don't have to pay extra for after the fact. On top of that, this grade also gets tri-zone climate control. So rear seat occupants can turn the temperature up, and they have air vents in the center console as well, which is really handy. There's map pockets on the back of the seats, plus little smaller map pockets a little bit higher up. And of course, there are ISOFIX tether points on both of the outboard seats and top tethers over the back of all 3 seats. And this seat folds 40, 20, 40. So you can theoretically put your child seat in whatever section you like, and you can still get access into the boot. There's also a tilt and slide function on this seat, so you can recline it and get nice and comfy. So that does actually help the headroom somewhat, but I do feel like I'm really lounging back. So you kind of have to balance it out and find your perfect position. The full Outlander range has a really current 5-star ANCAP rating. So it was last tested in 2022, so this year. So you can rest assured that all the safety technology is really up to date, and it gets a really nice suite of active safety tech from the base grade, and this grade builds on that as well, which is wonderful. There are 8 airbags as standard, including a center airbag, which is a newer type of airbag that prevents the front seat occupants from colliding in the event of a side collision, which is obviously nice to have as a peace of mind factor. And on top of that, it is worth noting that whilst the seatbelt reminders extend all the way to the 3rd row, the curtain airbags do not. So just keep that in mind when you're putting little occupants in the 3rd row, that they don't have that extra layer of safety back there. The autonomous emergency braking system can detect cyclists and pedestrians and function at junctions. There's adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, a lane departure warning and lane departure prevention, driver attention monitoring and traffic sign recognition, and front and rear parking sensors. From the Aspire grade and up, this package extends to a multi-around view monitor, a rear cross traffic alert, auto high beam, rain sensing wipers, and dusk sensing headlights. So I'm in the 3rd row, and as you can probably tell, there's not much room back here. So the middle row tilts forward and slides forward in order to allow you to get in. So it still requires a little bit of contortion, but in order for me to get any semblance of leg room, knee room, toe room, the person in front of me basically has to sacrifice everything. So they wouldn't have much space at all to work with. And the main issue, as you can probably tell back here, is I've got 0 headroom. So I'm really hunched over. I literally cannot straighten out. It's really uncomfortable, and it's making me feel claustrophobic. On the plus side, there's some small windows either side that kind of lighten it up and counteract that underground bunker feeling, and a cup holder on either side. But otherwise, this is really a temporary solution, and in Mitsubishi's defense, they do describe this as a 5+2 seating configuration rather than a full-time 7-seater. So they're not really selling it as anything more than a short-term solution, and kids would probably be fairly comfortable back here. But otherwise, if I'm an adult, I don't want to be back here for any longer than maybe 30 seconds. So my time is up. Let's get out. Now you'll have to forgive the rain noise, but it's just Melbourne being Melbourne, so we're making do with what we can. Now this grade of Outlander has a power tailgate, which I'm going to open now using the key. And you'll see that back here we have 478 litres of space, and that goes down to about 163 litres when the 3rd row is in play. That is a smaller boot than some key competitors like the Ford Escape, the Kia Sportage and the Toyota RAV4, but keep in mind, those cars don't have to squeeze an extra 2 seats in there, so it's not too bad. And if you do want more boot space, the 5-seat Outlander offers around 485 litres of room, so a little bit more. Also, something to note is the fact that regular Outlanders that aren't plug-in hybrids either receive a full-size spare or a space-saver spare, but this car only gets a tyre repair kit. Now there's a fair bit going on back here in the boot, so I'll show you some of the highlights. First up, there's this retractable cargo cover, which can be completely removed if you want to put the 3rd row up, or if you just want a little bit more space. There's some levers as well back here that can remotely lower the middle row. So if I pull that, it will lower that down flat. I don't have to go into the middle seat to do that, which is really handy. Obviously down here you've got your 3rd row, which I'll show you in a second, but you've also got a power point here, because the Outlander plug-in hybrid has vehicle to load capabilities, which basically means you can actually use this car as a generator to power things like a kettle while you're camping, or you know what? I've got to say, this wet weather is wreaking havoc on my hair, so I'm going to put this to good use. Now to access the Outlander's vehicle to load capabilities, there are 2 power points in the car. One is here in the boot and the other one is at the back of the center console. I'm going to use this one today. And there are two things you need to know before you plug in your appliance, and that's the fact that the car has to be turned on first, and also to engage the vehicle to load capabilities, you have to hit a button that says 1500 watt AC, which is just to the right of the steering wheel. You'll find it, no worries. Make sure that your appliance is rated at no more than 1500 watts, otherwise it will wreak havoc on whatever you're plugging in. But once all those boxes are ticked, you're ready to go. I'm going to plug this in, and I've got my hair straightener. I'm going to turn it on and see if anything happens. Ah, it's flashing red, which means it's heating up, so it's working and I can actually touch up my hair, which has seen better days. So if you stay tuned, this will become a YouTube beauty tutorial. While I'm sure I would get the hang of it eventually, I found that putting the third row up in the Outlander is a lot more complicated than it is in some other 3-row SUVs I've encountered. There's some multiple steps involved, and there are some labels and levers throughout with numbers on them, so you know which one to do first, second, third, fourth, and so on and so forth. However, I have tried a few times and it just doesn't flow quite like I'd want it to. So I'm going to do it live on air, so to speak, so you can get a real sense of what's involved. Now, the first step, there's a label here that says 1, so I'm presuming that's my first step. I lift it up like this, and it's a little bit heavy, and then you click that over and into place like that. Now, that's just the beginning. Now, the next step, there's a little pull tag here that says 2 on it, so I'm going to pull that and hope it works. Now the seat back is up, and then of course you can flip up the headrest like this. Not too bad, but stowing it back down, another process entirely. So there's levers here on the other side of the headrest to put those back down, and then on the back here you actually pull the 1 again to just make sure that it goes down. So my 1 lever's disappeared. Okay, no, sorry, you go 4 now. 4, that's not right. Okay, 3, oh yeah, it's 2 again. Yeah, there we go. Wait, hold on. There we go. And then I think I go 3, no, 4, and then 4 back again. All right, I probably made that way more complicated than it needs to be, but essentially it's sort of a flip, then fold up, as opposed to just a fold up like it is in other cars. But maybe I'm an idiot. Don't tell me if I am. I don't want to know in the comments. Just tell me I'm smart and make me feel good about myself. Now, Mitsubishi claims the Outlander plug-in hybrid has around 84 kilometres of electric range. So in real world terms, I only managed to see about 70 kilometres of range on the car's onboard trip computer when it was fully charged, but still it's enough to kind of get you through commuter driving for a couple of days or so. For me, it took me 5 days of commuter driving and running errands to really run that battery flat. So that's pretty great. And it operates as well in EV mode. You can select to drive in pure electric power. And that just means basically the car won't use petrol for as long as it can until that battery is flat. So if you're willing to plug it in every night and keep it fully charged, this could just essentially be a pure electric car. There are a couple of ways to charge the Outlander plug-in hybrid. It comes with 2 charging cables included in the purchase price. The first one will just plug into a regular wall socket in your home, so that'll take around 12 hours to fully charge the battery. The second will plug into a slightly faster AC charger, so a wall box or a public AC charger. That takes around 6.5 hours, so good for a little top up, but still not exactly ideal. And then the fastest way to charge it is via a fast charger. So the car can accept up to 50 kilowatts of a charging rate using one of these public chargers behind me. I'm at an EV public charger in Collingwood, and you can plug it in via the cable attached to the charger into the car's onboard CHAdeMO plug. So that's compatible with fast charging. Now, I've been here, I will admit, for 70 minutes, and that's only gotten me from 20% charge to 95% battery charge, and it's given me about 68 kilometers of range all up. But to be fair, it's only cost me $4.50. So that's pretty impressive and nowhere near as expensive as petrol. And if you're not like me and you actually do have off-street parking, it's probably most likely that most owners will just plug this into their garage wall socket overnight, get up to full charge and run this as a mostly electric car. So that's great, and it will mean you're not really regularly going to the petrol station, which is a win for everyone. Mitsubishi claims fuel consumption on a combined cycle of as low as 1.5 litres per 100 kilometres. Obviously, your fuel consumption is going to vary greatly depending on how much battery charge you have and what drive mode you're using. So for my first few days in this car, I drove predominantly in EV mode and I used predominantly electric power with a full charge on the battery. And my fuel consumption on the trip computer was as low as 1.3 litres per 100 kilometres. Once I ran that battery down and switched into normal mode, then that sort of ramped up, but it was still pretty low at between 3 to 5 litres per 100 kilometres. So it's not a guaranteed consumption figure, and it does depend on how regularly you're charging it and what kind of mode you're driving in, but it is pretty impressive fuel consumption regardless of which way you slice it. Now, my energy consumption for just the battery, leaving fuel aside, was a little bit high at 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. It's possible that your circumstances could change that consumption figure, and still it did, as I said, take me 5 days to fully run down that battery. So it's a pretty good solution if you're just doing city driving and you're happy to keep it fully charged. So the last time I drove this car, it was in non-hybrid form and only front-wheel drive. And I'm going to say I much prefer this car behind the wheel. First of all, the outputs just add a little bit of extra oomph when you're getting going from a standstill, and it just feels like there's more power to pull from when you're overtaking and tackling, steep terrain and that kind of thing. On top of that, the all-wheel drive system is just, first of all, a great system. It works really well, and I also have really appreciated it because, as you can probably tell from this video, it is absolutely pouring here in Melbourne. So I've really enjoyed the reassurance of all-wheel drive when I'm tackling tram tracks in the pouring rain and honestly water that's been about this thick on the road. So I've never once doubted the abilities of this car, which is just a great peace of mind factor. Even though it's classed as a medium SUV, the Outlander is quite a big car for its class, so it does feel quite long, and visibility isn't terrible, but I suppose it could be better in my opinion. There's a little bit of a blind spot at the back there because of a sort of wider than usual C-pillar, and that's, I suppose, to accommodate that extra third row seating. And although you have, great blind spot monitoring and an excellent kind of reverse camera, I will say that it is a little bit hard to get the dimensions of this car in the first few times you're driving it. So it took me a little while to just get a sense of the best way to park it and maneuver it. And I will say as well that if you can afford it, spending a little bit extra to get into a variant that has that overhead view monitor, or the multi-around monitor as Mitsubishi calls it, is definitely worthwhile. At least for me, parking in tight streets, I found it really came in handy. Of course, front and rear sensors are standard as well. That's a godsend when you're parking and maneuvering in tight city streets, and it's just a nice extra to have that a lot of other cars only have the rear sensors, so to have the front thrown in as well is a real win. I still find the seating position in the Outlander a little bit funny in that the bonnet sits quite high and I feel like I'm quite low beneath the bonnet. So it's kind of a feeling that takes a little bit getting used to, and I do feel like I tend to prefer feeling a little bit higher in an SUV, but you'll know straight away once you get in whether it's for you. And to be honest, whilst it kind of irked me the first couple of days, now I'm pretty much used to it. Now, this car has a lot of different driving modes and it can prove really overwhelming. For starters, there's a dial down here that gives you access to 7 different traction modes. So you've got your snow in there, you've got mud, all that kind of thing. So that's one section of the drive mode spectrum. On top of that, you've also got 4 different power modes, I suppose you could call them. So there's EV mode, which relies primarily on electric power unless you really put your foot down, in which case the car will engage the petrol engine to give you a little bit of extra oomph. You've got save mode, which will run the car in order to really reserve your battery power. And then finally, you've got normal mode, which just uses a combination of different types of power depending on the drive conditions. There's also a button that allows for one pedal driving, which means you can slow the car almost to a stop simply by decelerating. Now, one of the highlights of the drive experience in this car is that you could be forgiven for thinking it's a pure electric car. When you have it in EV mode with that battery fully charged, it's really quiet and quick from a standstill. And even when the petrol engine does kick in, it's a pretty subtle transfer of power and the engine noise is nice and muted. I do feel like I'm getting a little bit of road noise up through the cabin, but otherwise it's a nice quiet car for the most part. Now, while you'd never accuse this car of being a hard or uncomfortable ride, to me it's a little unbalanced. And what I mean by that is that going over things like that speed bump I just tackled, or a pothole, or just a kind of uneven road surface like a series of cobblestones and things like that, it's overly reactive and feels a bit crashy and unsettled. And on top of that, it also has the effect of feeling a bit top heavy and wobbly. So those two things combined can just lead to you feeling a bit unwieldy when tackling rougher terrain or corners and things like that. And I just wish it felt a little bit more grounded and level. The driver assistance systems work really well together. I don't feel like I have to sort of monitor them. They're automatic and they kind of make sense to me. One thing that takes some getting used to in this car is that obviously it's running predominantly on electric power when you have that battery charge, and that does mean that it's really quiet, so that's fantastic, but it does also mean that people will walk out in front of your car if you don't give them a heads up that you're there because it's so quiet. So one thing Mitsubishi's done to counteract that effect is that they have made the car emit a sort of low, subtle humming, ringing noise even when you're maneuvering and going at low speeds in full electric mode. So it just lets people know that you're coming. You can kind of hear it and you might think you're going a little bit crazy. I certainly did for the first couple of days and thought I was hearing things, but it turns out it is intentional. And then you've also got some beeping noises, which I'll speak about a little bit later when you're reversing, which are a little less subtle. Overall, I much prefer the plug-in hybrid Outlander to the non-plug-in hybrid. I feel like that was missing a little bit of this extra power and torque, and the electric drive experience just adds some X factor the other Outlander was lacking. And on top of that, it's just really nice to have all-wheel drive as standard. I think that in an SUV and a larger car, that adds a really nice peace of mind factor. Now, one of the most annoying things about this car, even though it isn't necessary for pedestrian safety, is the fact that when you're reversing in pure electric mode, it plays a really loud beeping noise to let pedestrians know you're coming in lieu of engine noise. So I'll pop it into reverse now. And I don't know if you can hear that, but it is really loud, and it means that everyone stares at you when you're reverse parking, which is just humiliating. Mitsubishi offers a really impressive 10-year, 200,000 kilometre warranty, but that's provided you service your car exclusively through Mitsubishi dealerships and stick to the prescribed servicing schedule. If you don't, the warranty reverts to 5 years and 100,000 kilometres, which is a little bit behind the rest of the industry, which tends to at least offer 5 years and unlimited kilometre warranties. All owners get 12 months of free roadside assist, with an additional 12 months available for those using the Mitsubishi dealer network to service. The battery has a warranty of 8 years or 160,000 kilometres. Servicing the Outlander plug-in hybrid costs $897 over 3 years or $1,495 over 5 years, with capped price servicing available for the full 10-year period. I really think the Outlander Exceed plug-in hybrid has the potential to tick a lot of boxes for people. It's got 7 seats, all-wheel drive, plug-in hybrid power of course, and plenty of equipment in terms of safety, driver assistance and cabin comforts. The Exceed grade is on the pricey side, but it truly is one of a kind in its segment, plus Mitsubishi's low running costs and servicing costs and that 10-year warranty might help to balance it all out in the long run. Plus, if you're willing to plug it in every night like you would your phone to charge, then it's likely you may never have to really use petrol, so that could save you at the Bowser as well. In short, this car might just exceed your expectations. See what I did there? If you want more amazing jokes like that, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel for more new car content.